Well, let's talk about that with a man who hopefully can answer all those questions. Roy Ramm, former commander of Specialist Operations at New Scotland Yard. A very good afternoon to you, Roy.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Right, so there's a big fanfare for these police reforms. I mean, again, it's quite interesting. You know, these things have been announced many times before, have they not? But basically, you know, the biggest police reforms, some of the most significant police reforms in this country in 200 years. And we've seen, and this is all about, we heard some of this at the end of last week, 43 different police forces going down to about 12. A national police force that sort of takes over all sort of terrorism and county line stuff and massive fraud, including the National Security Agency and others, and putting it all into one body. Some lower level neighbourhood policing as well. We're told this is going to both save money, improve response times. There's going to be a requirement to turn up within 50 minutes in a city area or 20 minutes in a rural area. And it's also going to mean more police officers as well. Is it likely that any reform is going to do all of those things?
Well, do you know what? I absolutely welcome this, and I'd argued for it for some time, and also that this should be part of a Royal Commission into the justice system, because, you know, it's all very well having the police force being much more effective. If the sausage machine is chewing, you know, chucking the stuff out, it's got to go somewhere, and it's got to go into the courts. But let's stick with the policing. You know, the last time the police was substantially reviewed was in the 1960s, and before that there was like 1,200 police forces, and some of them you could get them all into one telephone booth. But you know, 43 forces now. You cross boundaries, and the local chief officer wants to do something differently. Yeah. Communications are different. They're buying uniforms differently. Communication, it's nuts. Yeah. And you know, we're in a digital age. Communication has changed. It must change.
Presumably also the crimes, a lot of fraud, yeah, and the county lines, drug gangs and things like that, and, you know, and terrorism. This stuff, I mean, you know, they don't go, oh, well, I'm in Cheshire, I must keep my criminal activity in Cheshire.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, criminals know no boundaries. You know, it'd be great if you're doing surveillance and they get to the county boundary and turn around, but that doesn't really happen. So I think that's really good. I mean, I really look forward to the white paper, but it's got to make sure that there's a level of crime that lots of people don't see, and when you've been talking about that, you know, terrorism when it manifests itself, serious organised crime when it manifests itself. But for most of the public, it's the disorder, it's the shoplifting, it's the street crime, and that has to be visibly policed. So fine. Sort out the logistics, get a national crime squad, absolutely great. I'd love to have been a part of it. But then let's make sure that those tiers underneath it also deliver. And that has to be, we have to see more visibility of police officers. We have to see them turning up to crime scenes. We have to see them dealing with disorder in public places. Yeah. And, you know, and in cities and in rural communities. So that needs to be a product of this reorganisation.
But isn't it extraordinary that we even have to have a conversation? We need to have police turning up to crime scenes. Like, I mean, you know, no beep Sherlock is something a lot of people would be saying at this point. Yeah. Is this based on? But there's also this idea, I mean, I suppose there is that worry that if, you know, and again, we have this with the NHS, you reform everything, you take out this layer of bureaucracy, you do that, but nothing actually changes. All the focus goes into reform, people getting payoffs, you know, and then being hired back on greater salaries, and nothing actually changes on the ground. What we really need is just more police officers, greater communication. I mean, again, I'm serious. Every police officer needs to be taught touch typing, for the love of God, and no more writing things down on little pads and getting everything into the system straight away. We need to get rid of a load of the box ticking and all of that. They need to be focused on the crimes people care about. But also, crucially, there's this idea that, well, there's serious crime and then there's these minor crimes. Having your bag stolen or your phone stolen or being a small shopkeeper and having shoplifters every day, that is not minor crime. That is a serious crime for those people. But also, those crimes fund the serious crime.
It is. The impact on individuals is unquestionably important, and that's when, you know, when you're meeting friends and they're telling you what's happened to them, that's what's on their mind. And completely get that. I've seen it a
But this is
thousand
gangs.
times.
You know, the shoplifting around my way, in my local high street, I've spoken to all the shopkeepers about it. They've now organising themselves, you know, because it's been done by organised gangs, and they use that money for other things. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
they do.
The people smugglers, the drug dealers, everything. This stuff is all being, you know, funded by a lot of this minor crime as well. And if the police spent their time catching this low-level criminals, they may find they might actually tackle some high-level criminality too.
I don't disagree with anything you said, but what I would say also is that, I mean, some shoplifting it is not of the organised kind. There is loads of the organised crime without any doubt. But even if it's an individual getting away with it, it sends a message to communities that actually it's okay to steal from the local shop when it really isn't. So it needs to be tackled locally, but where there are links identified to serious and organised crime, then it needs to be pushed up, and you need them for that supranational organisation to be able to go across the boundaries and say, hang on, the proceeds from 100 200 incidents of shoplifting are fueling drugs trafficking, arms movement, people trafficking. So you need that integrated policing model.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do find an awful lot of crime is happening in plain sight. Again, police aren't turning up. Even the serious stuff. I mean, one of my local, between two high streets, one of them, it's closed down now and changed into something else. But it was a nut shop. It just sold nuts. It sold nuts in an area where I'm not sure a nut shop would survive. It wasn't, Islington High Street or Hampstead High Street or something. And this nut shop had the most extraordinary security. I mean, it literally had security guards outside. The back door from the the back of the shop, and indeed the shop, the shop back at the door of the front, the front bit of the store, completely reinforced steel doors. I don't think they were selling nuts. A friend of mine went into the shop and asked to buy some nuts, and they looked utterly perplexed and said, "What do you normally pay?" Because they didn't sell nuts. How is it that the locals are going, "I don't think that's a nut shop. I don't think that's what they're doing." Police, no, doing absolutely nothing about it. I mean, it's laughable.
Well, yeah, I agree. But I mean, I really look forward to this white paper this afternoon, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again.
You're so much more positive than me. Look, what do you reckon of this new British FBI? I mean, that's, shorthand for this National Police Service, including the National Crime Agency, counter-terrorism policing, regional organised crime units, police helicopters, national road policing, one organisation. I mean, that sounds like that makes sense. And the boss of that will be senior to the Metropolitan Police Chief, who's currently the most senior police officer. Is that going to make a difference, having that all under one umbrella?
Yeah, it's going to make a huge difference, I think. Once you start to look at terrorism offences, it kind of comes back to what we were speaking about earlier about people crossing borders, whether they're borders within the UK or national borders. If you're a police chief, let's say in France or in Italy, and you've got some information about drugs movement, people movement, terrorism, you want a comparable organisation. And I think it allows the UK to speak to these other countries, including the US and the FBI, on a much easier basis.
Okay.
And I don't think it matters whether that individual is more senior than the Met Commissioner. I mean, whoever's running London's still got a pretty big job. But I think it's a really good idea.
Okay, just finally on UK policing, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary's also said she's going to scrap non-crime hate incidents, crucially, in their current form. She's been saying, they're distracting police from fighting, crime that people care about. She says officers should be focused on catching criminals, cutting crime, making sure that people in our neighbourhoods feel safe. I don't want them to be policing perfectly legal tweets. I want to make sure they're focused on the day job. We've had two Home Secretaries under the Tories, Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, who both tried to scrap non-crime hate incidents. They were never in law. They were created by the College of Policing, which has been more captured than the NHS. I mean, it's basically is Stonewall, as far as I can tell. Saying you don't want police to go after people for perfectly legal tweets, that's all very well, but the police often think these tweets aren't legal, and they are completely caught up in that woke culture where anyone who feels offended, that must be recorded in some way. Two former Tory Home Secretaries failed to do this. Do you think a Labour Home Secretary will?
You're right. I'm slightly more positive than you.
You're much more. I mean, you are. I mean, you are blue skies today, Roy.
I travel in hope. Look, this whole issue of tweets and hate policing has been such a massive distraction as to try to identify what the government says is illegal and what they want police to do about it. You know, if you go right back to people would phone the Nick and say, "Look, my neighbours said something awful to me," and you'd go around, knock on the door and say, "Look, please behave yourselves." And you might actually make a note of that in a collator's index.
Just in case something happens in the future.
But it's not a conviction. It's not something that's going to impair somebody getting a job or their livelihood. And that's the kind of common sense area where we need to be.
Yeah, common sense would be nice. That'd be a start. Can I ask you just finally, looking at things overseas, I'm sure you've seen all these reports about these ICE agents in Minneapolis. The second person, a protester, to be killed by ICE agents in that city. It's not happening elsewhere. These protests have turned, you know, pretty aggressive, it seems at times. This man did have a gun, although he wasn't arming it. He one hand was quite clearly empty, the other hand he was holding a mobile phone. Things turned pretty nasty. 20 different video versions of this. Everyone's giving their political tuppence worth on this. What do you make of someone who's been in the thick of it, as former commander of specialist operations at New Scotland Yard, of law enforcement agents getting up in a situation where they kill a protester?
Do you know what? It is really, really troubling. If you look, for example, at the Met last year, the Met, as you will know, has spoken about, policed thousands of demonstrations. Nobody, absolutely nobody, got shot by the Met in any set of circumstances last year. And across the UK, I think there were 4 incidents and 2 were sadly suicide by cop. So we're talking about a completely different environment where guns, everybody has guns. This guy had a legal weapon, apparently was allowed to carry it. Why you would carry a legal weapon to a public order event like that defeats me. But I think the problem is that ICE are appearing as a paramilitary organisation, and there is not a history of policing public order incidents in the US which is comparable to what we see in the UK. I think they need to step back. I think they need some training in how to deal with crowds, how to speak to people, and how to deal with these incidents with non-lethal weapons. I think it's heading for a tragedy.
Thank you so much, Roy Ramm, a former commander of specialist operations at New Scotland Yard. Very much appreciate you joining us. Thank you for that. Just some breaking news for you. Former Home Secretary, Conservative MP Suella Braverman has joined Reform UK. She has defected to Reform. We were expecting, weren't we, this week there'll be an announcement about a high-profile Labour figure. Very much not a high-profile Labour figure, but absolutely a very high-profile Conservative. She follows on from Robert Jenrick, of course Nadhim Zahawi, and Andrew Rossendale as well. Again, 3 of those being Conservative MPs who have actually defected, but that's the 4th high-profile Tory, 3rd high-profile. Along with Jenrick. Jenrick was actually Robert Jenrick was in the shadow cabinet, but certainly a former Home Secretary. I think many people, Benedict Spence still with me, had expected that Suella Braverman was on the list of likely defectors. Her husband had defected from the Tories to Reform, and had been all over social media talking about it. I was
going to say, she's defected months after the rest of the world assumed she already had. So,
yes.
Better late than never. Maybe she didn't get the memo, but this is one of those that I think people had assumed it was going to happen at some point anyway, especially after Robert Jenrick jumped. There was no real reason for Suella Braverman to remain in the Conservative Party. There was no career progression. It was very clear that a lot of her colleagues don't like her very much. Her politics are much more closely aligned with that of Reform. Yeah. I think this was just an inevitable thing, maybe just a placeholder until this fabled Labour defector actually emerges. Who that might be,
well, Kate Hoey denies it's her.
Yeah, we don't know who it is. They don't know who it is.
Hey, it might be my next guest who's a Labour MP. You never know. We'll put it to him. But no, but this is a role, and again, this is very, very clear, absolutely open statement from Nigel Farage after the defection of Robert Jenrick, well, after he was sacked and ousted from the Tory party because he was going to defect within a few days. He said, look, May the 7th, the day of the local Welsh and Scottish elections, that is your last day for defecting. We're not going to, the door is not going to be open forever. Yeah. There'll be a lot of focused minds as a result of that. Now, there will be an element, I would have thought, that the likes of Kemi Badenoch, the Tory party leader, who we had on the show last week, will be saying, good riddance, glad we've got rid of you, not an issue. Again, you're Nigel Farage's problem now. But, you know, she is a former Home Secretary and a Home Secretary who spoke out on a lot of these issues, who tried to get a lot of things done that she could not get done because of the Tory party basically talking the talk and not walking the walk.
These ones that have been defecting the last couple of weeks have not been like the sort of the drip feed of ousted MPs who most people sort of looked at and went, well, big whoop, that person's defecting. They're doing that because actually they've got nothing left, politically speaking, going on for them. These people are people who still carry quite a bit of heft, even within a lot of Conservative members. There will still be Conservative Party members who look at these people going and go, well, there goes the last shreds of my chance, sort of hang about. But I tell you what, I'm looking forward to May 7th. It's going to be like transfer deadline day.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have Nigel Farage hanging out of his car window going,
from TalkSport.
You have to ask the chairman who's coming left. Who knows, maybe somebody will go back to the Tories.
The more people on the right of the Conservative Party who move to reform, the more left. And we saw, did we not, with Andy Streeter and
I know
Ruth
the
Davidson,
former Scottish Labour leader,
Ruth Davidson.
not Labour leader, Tory.
Yeah, I mean, and both of them out and about. I would love to have them on the show talking about how this centrist again. What they think is centrist is basically Lib Dem Blair. That's what they don't get.
Yeah, it's we're going to see. Is that going to be the direction of the Tory party? Because it might be. It might give them a lifeline. It might mean that they have to kill the Lib Dems for them to survive rather than reform. But it leaves the way open for reform.
It really does. Fascinating. I'd love to hear your